Once again. All right, we're back. This is the Exertis Broadcast Podcast, brought to you from the sunny place in California called Folsom. With me, as always, is the venerable Mr. Jordan Friday, sitting over at the audio side, followed by Delana Collins, running the video today. Thank you both for being here. I appreciate it. It would be awful if I did it by myself. Okay, so Mr. Stephen Forrest, you're back.
Yes.
You're here for more. You survived last time.
Barely.
Well, it was tough. I mean, I asked you a lot of rough questions there. He only told me no twice, everybody. Okay, so last time you were on, for anybody who didn't watch it, this is Stephen Forrest from Vitec, IPTV company, right? I mean, you guys are sort of like the premier in the industry for IPTV, from the commercial to the industrial to the application in sports and other environments. We had a great discussion about that. If you missed the last episode, hit pause right now, go watch it, understand we really discussed AV over IP and the differences between that and IPTV.
Correct.
So Vitec, sort of the premier in the IPTV space, from commercial, hospitality to stadiums. You guys can cover it all. And last you were on, we had a discussion about the differences between AV over IP and IPTV. I got a lot of angry emails, by the way. Folks, I like AV over IP. Stop it. But there is value propositions, right? And maybe we can just kind of recap sort of the differences there. So we got a couple slides. Let's roll through the. Well, actually today. So today we're just to break down. See, I didn't look at my own slides. We're going to break down sort of some verticals. We kind of want to talk about where IPD fits and, or the environments you've got and what you're doing in those environments. I kind of want to break down some different use cases so people can say, oh, I get that, right? I see where it fits. But to do that, let's jump in, just go to like our core tenets here of sort of a breakdown of the last discussion. So Delaney, go to the next one, which is sort of, okay, what are the use cases for AV over IP? Right? Where would people use it? And we kind of decided like, okay, in real-time video production, in conference rooms where we've got sort of enclosed networks, and then, even doing some on-prem displays, like getting short-range extension opportunities right across the network. But let's jump into IPTV for a second. So punch me to the next one, D. Talk to me about these use cases for IPTV, and specifically within these three here. Why? How are they being used?
Yeah, so I mean, IPTV is big for like corporate communication. So being able to distribute video, could be information like digital signage and things like that around your IP network of a corporate office, but it can also be multiple offices. And that's really where we can leverage the scale of IPTV and why a lot of corporate customers are looking at this technology over an AV over IP system, because it just allows them to expand it beyond that one campus, that one office, or that one floor of the building that they're in.
And as we were talking about last time, because of, you have set-top boxes, but you also have web-based clients, right? People that can view from a browser. That also lowers the cost, right? Because you're not buying a dedicated TV and a set-top box for every viewer that you want to see it.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're a large corporate customer with, 5,000, 10,000 users on your headquarter campus, if you're thinking about how you're going to get video to all of those users, if you're putting a TV on every desk, that's a lot of TVs, that's a lot of equipment that you've got to manage, replace, age out, and everything else. If you can bring it up on your desktop, you can really roll it out much faster and much more economically to a big organization. But the nice thing being, you can still scale it down to a smaller, simpler office as well. It doesn't have to be a flagship headquarter building. It could be any kind of office infrastructure, or higher education, or hospitality, healthcare, whatever.
And then just to kind of capitalize on that, as all those different environments, you've also got, let's talk about the types of content that's in an IPTV system, right? So it's on demand, digital signage, live video, television. I mean, all these things are part of that IPTV ecosystem, correct?
You've got your broadcast TV channels coming in, whether that's cable, satellite, over the air content, that can be part of your IPTV system. But as long as all your corporate internal feeds as well, the CEO wants to do a town hall meeting, they're doing a podcast, they're doing whatever. How do you share that? Yes, you can use if you want to do a large scale, Zoom meeting or something like that, you could do that, but there's limitations if you're wanting to do that to, throughout the entire office. Whereas actually with an IPTV system, we can take over all the signage endpoints and display that corporate message live or pre-recorded as it's happening in multiple offices around the world using the internal LAN/WAN environment of a typical corporate customer.
Yeah, and again, things that probably traditionally aren't really capable of doing with AV over IP.
With AV over IP, with an old RF system, you just can't do any of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. Okay, so let's kind of break it down and talk about, because anybody who missed the last episode, go watch it, because we really tear down like what are these key points here, these things that it can do, kind of explore those. I want to explore customers now, people using it. So let's talk about corporate.
Yeah.
Commercial application. Give me a customer.
Yeah, so like corporate enterprise customers, real huge range. Anything from pharmaceuticals to finance, to pretty much anything you can think of. We'll have a customers doing that somewhere in the world. Here in the US, one of the big ones we've got is the CDC in Atlanta.
I think people have heard of them.
Yeah,
right?
they've
CDC,
been busy. They've
probably
been busy.
Pretty popular on the news the last couple of years.
Yeah. So they're using Vitec for their internal video distribution, and that could be everything from live TV breaking news from the US, but from around the world as well. They need to be able to access live news channels, but also a ton of internal content as well. If you've got an expert coming in to speak about an infectious disease, if you can't make that meeting, that information is still valuable.
If you don't want to go to that meeting because it is infectious diseases we're talking about here, I'd rather watch it from my desk, please.
Exactly. And so that information can be captured, and it can be then presented as a video on demand, capability where you can play it back at your leisure, or if you're a new employee and you used to watch something as part of your training, you can access all this library of all this great content.
Let's stop right there for a second, because when we talk about video on demand, it's like recording content is part of the package, correct?
Exactly. And, it's a kind of core functionality of IPTV that you're really going to struggle to integrate that with a typical AV over IP system.
Well, you have to get the third-party system. You have to break it back out to baseband to then send it into a recording system to record it, and then you've got all the APIs to say, ooh, what do I have? Can I play it back? IPTV, it's inherent. It's in the nature to do this, right?
Exactly. Whether it's a video on demand recording or a streaming video across the network, at the end of the day, it's all data. So it's being recorded on servers when it needs to be. It's being played back video on demand, kind of seamlessly from a server when it needs to be, or it's or you're tapping into a live stream that exists on the network, from cable or from a camera feed or production system or something like that. So you really get that kind of seamless experience as the user, because users quite often are non-technical. And so that has to be simple. So they can just access live video on demand, make a recording all from one interface. So it really makes it nice and simple for them to be able to, navigate content.
That's something we probably should have talked about more in the last one, as we were talking about the differences in AV over IP versus IPTV. When we look at AV over IP, it's effectively a bunch of encoders and decoders and a box somewhere that's telling them what to do. What is the infrastructure inside of an IPTV system?
So we're going to have some servers, physical, virtual, in the cloud, whatever, that allow you to control all of your video on the network. So if you want to make a recording, it's going to happen as part of the server infrastructure. If you want to do a video on demand, it's going to play out from the server. So you're not having to interface with any kind of third-party systems, and it's all tied into the IPTV platform. So from a user perspective, it's seamless. From a IT perspective, it's easy to manage because they have these dedicated appliances that are designed for video on demand recording, playing out, to your desktop or whatever the customer's actually doing.
Yeah. Now, sort of the Lord of the Rings mentality. Here's the one server to rule them all, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting. So going back to the CDC, so this application they've got is the ability to push live meeting data out, record it, and then allow people to watch it. And I would assume in something like that where the information is coming so quickly, and we're being able to extract from sitting in my desk a live news feed coming from somewhere that's being pumped through the system, and then be able to jump right over to a meeting that's in place or that was done earlier. I can see how they would sort of see this as a alternative, not alternative to AV over IP, but just a solution that they can't do with traditional AV over IP.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The sheer scale, number of employees in these large kind of enterprise campuses like the CDC, there's thousands of people accessing, hundreds of channels, thousands of bits of video on demand. That kind of scale of project is just, it's just not really possible or practical with a lot of AV over IP systems, whereas IPTV is kind of effortless.
Yeah. Okay, so let's, I know we got a couple case studies we want to talk about today, so let's jump into the first one. So I think this Overlake Medical Center. Talk to me. What are they doing? How are they using it?
Yeah, so same technology, different application, different vertical. So they're basically bringing in the big focus and healthcare in general is towards patient experience is kind of the key phrase. So it's not about just, oh, we need a TV system. Well, that's been around in hospitals for a long time. That's not a big deal. But it's about, how do I differentiate myself from another hospital, because I want them as my patient and my customer, basically. And IPTV can help you do that. IPTV has been used in hospitality all over the world for years, and healthcare is starting to really embrace that as a technology, because they want to elevate the patient experience at the bedside to something like they would get at home, something like they would get in a fancy hotel, and IPTV lets them do that. So it's things like, yes, I want to access my live TV channels coming in from cable, coming in from satellite. That's not changing. People want that to come into their building, and so we can leverage that. But they also want video on demand, and that could be sort of patient educational videos. Hey, you're having surgery on your knee. Here's some videos about the procedure, the recovery, what you can expect. You can watch that as you're getting ready, as you're kind of prepping the patient at the bedside. But there's also the recovery. Well, what am I going to do? I want to entertain myself. Okay, I might have a video on demand library, and that might be something that lives locally in the hospital. Kind of similar to what you would get in a hotel, where you can access the 20, 30, 50 or whatever videos that they have. What we're seeing increasingly, though, and this is something that we can facilitate, is what I would term as bring your own content. I can walk into the patient room with my cell phone, scan the QR code. It will then pair my phone to the TV that I'm in my room, and then I can just bring up my Netflix, Disney Plus, Hulu, any app that you can cast, hit the cast button, and all of a sudden my content from home is being displayed on the TV, in my room. So it really kind of elevates the patient experience. It's something that they're getting in their kind of home environment.
What about the patient care aspect of all this? Let's dive in a little bit deeper on that one. So being able to target relevant data to that patient, right, based on what their particular ailment might be, right? So educational material that is focused on, let's say they're there for issues with diabetes, or they're for knee surgery, like all that. Think about all this on-demand material that could be easily programmed into that user's bedside TV to say, hey, before you leave, make sure you watch these, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so the nice thing being is that you can have multiple versions. The interface for navigating content is designed to be customizable. So it's branded as your hospital, your hotel, whatever. And so you can have multiple versions of that existing in the system. And so it's really useful for, you might have a pediatrics department. Well, that interface can prioritize Nickelodeon, and, it can be very colorful interface and really kind of prioritize the content for children, versus, different departments can basically have their own look and feel that has the content that's relevant for those patients.
That's an interesting concept, because, I mean, so often, the education side of it, of what am I giving that patient while they're there to help them after they're out, right? After they've gone away, and being able to target that and make it available to them while they're sitting there in their room, bored to tears. I think it's pretty valuable. All right. So, I mean, we've talked about sort of how they're using it to distribute live content, real-time content to make decisions. What about the rest of the campus? I mean, how else is it being used?
Yeah, no, it's a big deal. You've got waiting areas. People are sitting around waiting for appointments, waiting for loved ones or whatever. Getting TV to those areas is also a big deal. And so we can do all that from the same platform, whether it's smart TV they're using, like they're using in the patient rooms, or they're using a set-top box, and they can access that, those live channels for entertainment outside of the patient areas. And there's also the digital signage aspects. You're walking in, you want to have health messages, you want to have navigational information. You want to also promote what services are available in on this campus, in this location. And so you can use the signage platform, and they use the signage platform to kind of promote and push out all of that kind of information throughout the whole campus.
Okay, so when we were kind of talking about this one early on, you mentioned something unique about how they're integrating in with the nurses via their system. Give me more on that one.
Yeah, so typically by your bedside you have a remote. And it's usually called the nurse call system, the pillow speaker. It does a huge number of different functions, but typically, one, it's wipe clean, which is a big thing for healthcare, but we can basically tie that into the TV experience. So instead of having a typical IR remote control sitting there for your TV, you're actually able to navigate the content, play back your live channels, your video on demand, everything, via the remote control that can also summon the nurse and do all these other kind of things in your patient room. So that kind of integration is really important for most of our healthcare customers.
All right, so that's Overland, and that case study is available on the website.
Overlake.
Overlake. I don't want to go Overland. Interesting. Sorry, folks. Over Lake. We got another one. Let's talk about the next one. I think this one's really interesting to me. So Okada, this is a hotel.
Yeah, so it's a massive casino and hotel kind of resort, and they're kind of using both sides of our system. So they have the ability to do that entertainment in the guest rooms, very similar to healthcare, and it's a patient bedside instead. Now it's just guest bedside, but they're able to leverage a ton of functionality that exists within the sort of IPTV side of our system, and that could be things like ordering food, viewing your bill, checking out. The whole kind of TV system can tie into the PMS system, the property management system. That you're kind of booking and billing for a hotel, so they can talk to one another. So when you turn on the TV, it's got your name on it. It recognizes your loyalty level, and if you're a frequent member or something like that. But it can also do things like, you're ready to check out, you press a button, you're done. You're doing all that from your TV. So there's like tons of operational benefits to the resort, because they're stopping people dropping by reception, those long wait times and stuff that annoy people. You can just do all that from your room. Ordering food's a big one. Making appointments for the spa, for restaurants. You can tie in all these things into the system that really kind of help automate and elevate the guest experience. And so that's kind of on the kind of hospitality side of these things. But you also have the casino side as well. So that's a big, play for digital signage. Yeah. I want to have messages all over the place, promoting, what we have, maybe doing some, high level graphical wayfinding, pointing people in the right direction. They might want to have integration with the jackpot system. Where somebody wins $1 million, you want to tell people, hey, someone
you
won
want
$1 million.
That message everywhere, right? Yeah. That moment of exclusivity.
Exactly. And you can pop up those kind of messages to kind of drive people to gamble more, spend more, make the casino some more money. House always wins.
Yeah. It's a secret. It's a secret.
And so so you can kind of tie in all these things into the sort of IPTV and signage platform that works really nicely.
Do they operate them as two different systems, or is it in the particular case of this one, is it just one massive?
No, it's you can just do it with one server. So one server can kind of handle both. And that just, again, it gives the customer a lot of flexibility, but they're also getting a lot of economies of scale. They're not having to buy a signage platform. They're not having to buy an IPTV platform. They're buying one thing that can do both, and they're getting to leverage, perpetual licensing for signage and things like that reduces your kind of OpEx costs, because you're not paying for signage every year. Like a lot of kind of dedicated signage platforms, you've got that kind of licensing requirement that's an annual thing. And so, you're starting to look at the cost of ownership, especially in hospitality. That's a big thing. And sort of lowering that total cost of ownership for them, which is something we can help with, is a big deal.
It's kind of both of these in these case studies to me are very, not unique, but when I look at the larger integration channel, the larger geo channel, I say, how many of them are dealing with brand new hotel build outs or maybe hospitals, and there's probably more hospitals than I think. But these problems of being able to interact with customers, deliver content the way that's relevant to them, that's no different than sort of the corporate space, right? And, and I think sometimes we think of the corporate space as just internal customers and how do I get content from my laptop up to that screen? But this total experience, how can they be elevated inside of the corporate world?
Absolutely. I mean, the ability to have things like information pages. I load up the TV experience. I'm an executive. I have a TV on the wall in my office, and when I load that, I get the content that's I'm allowed to see, which might be different than the people that are actually doing all the work, on the floors below.
We got to keep them focused.
Exactly. But it's also like I can tap into, I have a meeting, and I have guests here. I want to order some drinks, coffees, whatever. You can do that from the TV. It sends a message to somebody else who then brings it into the meeting room for you. So there's those kind of hospitality aspects that you can cross over into corporate.
Yeah, I think people miss that because they don't think about the experience, right, of the people that are in the room. It's, do I get to see my content on the screen? And we kind of stop there versus taking it to the next level where we can create a more interesting work environment that drives more people to want to come back to the office, to want to have that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're in a break room. you might want to watch, live TV. You might want to watch sports news, whatever. But you also might want to, you could look up information pages. You could, catch up on some training if you wanted to. You can access that content through a very easy to use, and navigatable system.
Like when you mentioned the break room, I think it's kind of interesting because, you could then say, hey, I do want TV to be unlocked during these hours when people are in that conference or in that break room, right? But I want it to go just to digital signage during the hours that we need to make sure they're back at their desk. We need to make sure they're focused, right? And so that, again, coming back to traditional AV over IP, it's inputs to outputs, but IPTV sort of breaks those barriers and says it's no longer, it's about the relevant content in the places I need it to be to create the right work experience.
Absolutely. So you could have between 9 and 12, it's digital signage in the break rooms. Then 12 to 2, you can navigate any of the live TV channels you want because you're on your lunch break. And then it goes back to signage, and that's all scheduled. That's all automatic. And then all of a sudden it's the end of the workday. It's 7 p.m. All the TVs in the building turn off, and everything goes to sleep. And then at 7 a.m., people are starting to come to work. You turn all the TVs back on again. So all those kind of automations can be tied into your IPTV system without the need for an external control system. Yeah. You can actually do all that from IPTV, or certainly with Vitec you can.
Incidentally, the production crew, their TVs don't turn on until 9 a.m. They're just they're a little later in the day.
Some of our corporate customers like to get ready for the people arriving.
Yeah. Well, that's fair. Awesome. So, Stephen, we hit this once, but let's get it one more time. Where do people go to learn more?
The easiest way to do it is to go to the vitec.com website. Or reach out to one of your Exertis broadcast reps.
Thanks again for coming. I appreciate you being here twice to do the podcast.
Absolutely.
It's spectacular to have you in building. It's more fun this way. So everybody should come back to work. It's fun. But this has been the Exertis Broadcast Podcast with my special guest, Mr. Stephen Forrest. Make sure you hit their website to learn more. You guys have webinars up there. You've got additional content people can learn from.
Absolutely.
PDFs on all the case studies. We can put those in the show notes as well. Until then, we will see you all on the next episode of the Exertis Broadcast Podcast. See you then.